Welcome to the Phil and H Travel Podcast. Is it worth it?
Oh, we're jumping right in today.
We absolutely are. Because I want you to picture this scenario for a second. It's 11 in the morning.
Okay, a bit early.
Right. And you're sitting at this long, slightly sticky communal table inside a really chaotic, smoke-filled market.
Sounds intense.
It is. The grandfather sitting next to you is, like, already on a second beer.
Naturally.
Naturally. And he's actively trying to pour you a cup of sake. Meanwhile, just 2 meters away, there's this cook searing a massive fresh fillet of bonito tuna.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he's using a literal blowtorch made of burning straw.
Wait, actual straw.
Actual burning straw. The flames are shooting up to the ceiling. The smell of the smoke hits you right in the chest. And, 5 minutes later, that incredible fish is sitting on your plate.
I can literally picture it. How much does that set you back?
That's the crazy part. The entire meal costs you the equivalent of about 8 pounds.
Or, what, like $9 US?
Exactly. Yeah. And I know you might be thinking I'm describing a scene from like an old travel documentary shot in 2014, back before the entire world descended on Japan.
Right, the golden era.
Exactly. But I am not. This is Kochi, Japan. Right now. Today.
Yeah, and the catch here, and this is a massive catch, is that the Japanese government has just spent 3.8 billion yen to make sure this place does not stay a secret for much longer.
3.8 billion with a B.
Yep. The central government has essentially pointed a literal fire hose of infrastructure funding directly at this prefecture.
So they're preparing for something big.
Exactly. They are actively trying to fundamentally alter the flow of global tourism. They want to pull people away from the overcrowded mainland and push them down into this specific, very quiet corner of Shikoku Island.
Which brings us to the core mission of today's deep dive. We are taking a really massive, completely unvarnished look at Kochi Prefecture.
It's just a stunningly rugged stretch of Pacific coastline, honestly.
It really is. And it's suddenly become the government's flagship over-tourism release valve for 2026.
That's the perfect way to put it, a release valve.
Right. So over the course of this conversation, we're going to unpack the actual mechanics of what the government is doing behind the scenes.
And, far more importantly for you listening, what the current historically weak yen actually buys you on the ground right at this exact moment.
Absolutely. We're walking you through the definitive best and worst months to visit because, trust me, the climate here is probably not what you expect.
Definitely not.
We're also going to break down a major logistics trap that will utterly ruin your itinerary if you just, blindly trust your rail pass.
People fall for that one constantly.
All the time. And finally, we're going to figure out who this destination is fundamentally built for.
Because the goal here is a brutally honest, logistics-first verdict. We operate with zero tourism board spin.
Right. No sponsored hotel stays influencing what we say here.
None at all. We are going to stress test Kochi across 5 distinct traveler profiles. So we're looking at the backpacker, the mid-range couple, the family, the luxury traveler, and the digital nomad.
So by the end of this deep dive, you'll know definitively if investing the considerable transit time to get down to Shikoku is actually worth it for your specific travel style.
Right, and you'll know that before you even open a booking app.
Yeah. And for those of you currently, agonizing over the map, weighing Kochi against other well-known quiet Japan alternatives like Takamatsu or Kanazawa, we are going to settle that debate.
Mathematically and culturally, we're relying tierly on raw 2026 economic data, the cold, hard math of the exchange rate, and the actual ground-level realities.
No filtered aesthetic fantasies here. We're pulling the exact local supermarket prices, the unvarnished transit costs, and the actual ryokan rates.
Because, honestly, the landscape of Japanese travel has mutated so rapidly in the last 36 months.
It really has. You just can't rely on pre-pandemic assumptions anymore. You need to know exactly what friction is waiting for you when you step off that train.
Exactly. And to understand why Kochi needs to be on your radar right now, we have to kind of pull back the curtain on the macroeconomics of Japanese tourism.
Let's get into it.
Because there is this massive contrarian reality we need to start with, travel blogs constantly refer to Kochi as an, quote, undiscovered gem.
I see that phrase everywhere.
Right, but that phrase is completely false. It is not undiscovered. The Japanese government discovered it quite a while ago.
And they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. In January 2026, the Japan Tourism Agency formally named Shikoku as their absolute priority redistribution region.
Let's just pause on that word for a second. Redistribution.
Yeah, it's a very specific word.
It sounds so clinical, right? Almost like wealth distribution.
Yeah.
But here, it is literally the language of crowd control.
That's exactly what it is, crowd control.
Because to understand why redistribution is necessary, you just have to look at the sheer infrastructural buckling happening on the mainland.
It's bad. I mean, we're living in a reality where Kyoto just tripled its hotel tax to actively discourage budget travelers.
Tripled it. And we're looking at the Fushimi Inari Shrine, the famous red gates. They are instituting actual physical visitor caps.
Because the Golden Route, that massive artery connecting Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka, it is physically tapped out.
The buses literally cannot hold more people. The garbage disposal systems in these historical districts are failing.
Right. And the government realized they can't legally stop people from flying into Haneda or Kansai airports, obviously.
Right.
But they can aggressively engineer where those people go next. And they do that by pulling massive financial levers.
The mechanism they're using is central infrastructure funding. When a national government decides to pivot tourism, they don't just print a few brochures.
No, they rebuild the plumbing.
Exactly. And like we said, Kochi Prefecture received 3.8 billion yen from the central government this year alone.
Which, in the context of a rural aging prefecture, is just a staggering injection of capital.
And it's hyper-targeted, isn't it?
Absolutely. We're talking about dredging ports to handle new ferry terminals. We're talking about the complete bureaucratic nightmare of standardizing English signage across hundreds of small towns.
Towns that previously only had, faded handwritten kanji signs.
Right. And they're subsidizing JR Shikoku to massively expand the limited express train services running down from the Shinkansen connection in Okayama.
So they're essentially building the capacity to handle a flood of international arrivals before the flood truly hits.
Yes. But the data shows the floodwaters are actually rising already.
Yeah, international arrivals at Kochi Ryoma Airport jumped 74% year-on-year in the first quarter of 2026.
74%. That is huge.
It's massive.
Yeah.
But here is the tension, and this is why we're talking about this right now, today. It feels like we are looking at a neighborhood that has just been zoned for massive gentrification.
Yeah, the bulldozers are parked down the street.
Right. The bulldozers are there, but the rent hasn't gone up yet.
That's exactly it. You have this 74% spike in arrivals and billions in funding, but the local prices are still completely decoupled from the international demand.
You can still walk into that market I mentioned earlier and get that katsuo tataki set for 1,400 yen.
You can still book a highly respected traditional ryokan for around 18,000 yen a night.
And entry to an original feudal-era castle is 420 yen. The math just does not match the momentum right now.
It doesn't. So the pressing question is, how long do travelers actually have before this pricing window slams shut?
What's the timeline looking like?
Well, the economic modeling suggests a lag effect of roughly 18 months before the market fully corrects itself.
Okay, 18 months.
Yeah. What you're experiencing on the ground right now are basically museum pieces of pre-inbound Japan pricing.
That's such a good way to describe it.
And the mechanism behind this lag is actually really fascinating. You have the central government engineering this massive top-down boom.
Right.
But the local economy, the independent food vendors, the mid-tier hoteliers, they don't have dynamic pricing algorithms tied to global demand.
They're not tracking global flight data.
Exactly. They are still operating on a domestic-first pricing mindset. An 80-year-old woman running an izakaya does not raise her prices by 40% just because she saw a few more tourists this week.
No, she prices based on what her local neighbors can afford.
Precisely. Which means, as a traveler arriving right now, you are stepping into this bizarre, temporary utopia.
Because of that 3.8 billion yen, the ground experience is incredibly smooth. The English signs are there, the transit links are reinforced.
The infrastructure is totally modernizing.
But because of that local pricing lag, you aren't paying the Kyoto premium for it.
Yeah.
You're getting a highly polished experience at rural localized prices.
But, and we have to stress this, that lag will inevitably close. Once the larger hospitality groups move in and local chambers of commerce start standardizing tourist offerings, the baseline will shift.
So the window is explicitly open right now.
It is. But you can perfectly time this 18-month economic window, and if you miscalculate to climate, you will literally be trapped in your beautiful, cheap ryokan by a tropical storm.
Oh, absolutely. Because Japan does not mean one single uniform weather pattern.
People always forget that.
They do. A lot of travelers picture the cool, misty inland basin of Kyoto, or maybe the heavy snows of Hokkaido. But Kochi's geography makes it a completely different beast, and it requires a completely different strategy.
The geography dictates everything here. Kochi is Pacific subtropical. It occupies the entire southern curve of Shikoku, acting as this massive geographical shield facing the raw Pacific Ocean.
So there are no land masses blocking it from the deep ocean currents.
None. And this fundamentally alters the climate. It's significantly wetter, it's substantially warmer, and it's vividly greener than Tokyo or Kyoto basically year-round.
You cannot just copy-paste a generic Honshu packing list and expect to be comfortable.
No, the experience swings wildly depending on the specific month you land.
So let's map this out month by month, looking at both the weather and the corresponding crowd economics. Let's start with the deep winter, January and February. For a subtropical region, it still gets surprisingly brisk, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. You're looking at average daytime highs hovering around 8 to 12 degrees Celsius.
It's fairly chilly.
Yeah, and the wind off the Pacific can be sharp. You will definitely need a heavy coat. But looking purely through the lens of logistics and budget optimization, this is the absolute cheapest operational window.
Because the hotel algorithms just bottom out.
Exactly. Accommodation drops to roughly 40% below the peak summer rates.
Wow, 40%. So if you're a strict budget traveler, perhaps a backpacker or a digital nomad looking to maximize a long-term stay, and you really don't care about walking around in a scarf,
Then January and February are highly viable. The attractions are empty, the food is hearty, and the prices are just subterranean.
then we move into March. The plum blossoms start appearing, the weather begins to thaw, and we see a very gentle, almost imperceptible 15% rise in accommodation prices.
Just a slight bump.
Yeah, but then we hit the transition into late March and early April. Sakura season, the cherry blossoms.
Ah, yes.
And this is where the dynamic gets incredibly interesting because it highlights exactly who is currently traveling to Kochi.
The sakura season in Kochi is a perfect microcosm of its current transitional status. The grounds around Kochi Castle are genuinely one of the most spectacular hanami, that's cherry blossom viewing spots, in the entire country.
Yeah, really are.
You have these massive, ancient weeping cherry trees set against original feudal stone walls. On the mainland, a spot like this would be shoulder to shoulder with international tourists holding selfie sticks.
It would be gridlock.
Yeah.
But in Kochi, it remains remarkably uncrowded by foreigners.
Yes,
But it is definitely not empty.
far from it. The domestic Japanese tourists know exactly how prestigious the Kochi cherry blossoms are.
Oh, they know.
So they flood down from Osaka, Kobe, and Hiroshima. You get this massive wave of domestic travel hitting the prefecture.
And that domestic wave is enough to push local accommodation prices up roughly 60% above the winter baseline.
Which is significant.
Yeah.
It means, as an international traveler, you are not fighting tourists from London or New York for a hotel room.
No, you're competing in the domestic Japanese tourism market. You are literally fighting tourists from Osaka for that weekend booking.
Yep. So following the cherry blossoms, we slide into May. And looking comprehensively at the meteorological data, the pricing tiers, and the crowd volume, May is the absolute sweet spot.
The golden window.
It really is. The cherry blossom crowds dissipate, which drops the prices back down to a moderate, highly affordable level.
Nice.
The skies clear up and the temperatures settle around a perfect 22 degrees Celsius. It's warm enough for light layers, but not yet humid. So if you have total flexibility in your calendar, you target May.
I couldn't agree more. But that window closes hard when we hit June and early July. This is the Tsuyu, the notorious Japanese rainy season.
It is brutal.
And on the Pacific coast, that means something much, much heavier than a light drizzle.
The Pacific rainy season is relentless. Unless you're a photographer with a very specific desire to shoot empty, moss-covered temples in torrential downpours.
And you actively want 50% off your Ryokan rates.
Right. Unless that's you skip June and early July entirely.
Yeah.
The humidity skyrockets, the rain washes out the outdoor appeal of the rugged coastline, and the physical act of traveling with luggage just becomes incredibly miserable.
Okay, let's say you avoid the rain, and you look at late July and August, summer vacation. You might think, great, I'll go to the coast.
Big mistake.
Huge mistake. We have to talk about the Yosakoi Festival. It peaks every year between August 9th and 12th.
Yeah.
This is Kochi's signature cultural export. It's an incredibly energetic, massive street dance festival involving tens of thousands of performers in elaborate costumes holding wooden clappers.
And it draws around 1 million visitors over just a few days.
1 million people. And the economic impact of those 4 days is violent.
That's the right word for it. Accommodation prices triple if you can even find a room.
1 million people descending on a prefecture that we are pitching as the quiet alternative to Kyoto.
Yeah, the irony.
If you're just casually building a Shikoku itinerary and you blunder into Kochi City during Yosakoi week without realizing what is happening, your entire budget is completely destroyed.
It is the ultimate logistical trap. Look, the cultural significance of Yosakoi is immense. It's a phenomenal spectacle.
Absolutely.
But the sheer volume of humanity utterly overwhelms the local infrastructure. The restaurants have lines around the block. The local transit is chaotic and operating on diverted routes.
You're paying absolute premium Tokyo-level prices for a basic business hotel that hasn't been updated since 2005.
Precisely. Unless attending Yosakoi is the specific driving purpose of your trip to Japan, you must rigorously audit your days and build your itinerary to avoid that second week of August.
And immediately after you survive the festival crowds, you hit September. Which brings us to the most serious meteorological threat, the typhoon risk.
Yes.
The prefecture averages 3 direct hits per year. Now, I want to challenge this a bit because people from different parts of the world define storm risk very differently.
Fair point.
When we say a direct typhoon hit in Shikoku, are we talking about a ruined afternoon where you have to carry an umbrella? Or are we talking about being trapped in a hotel room, eating instant ramen from the convenience store for 3 days?
Oh, we are firmly in the instant ramen scenario.
Okay, wow.
A direct typhoon hit in Kochi is not just heavy rain, it is a comprehensive infrastructural pause.
Everything stops.
Everything. The mechanisms of travel simply cease to function. The JR Shikoku train lines physically shut down to prevent derailments from high winds and landslides. The flights out of Ryoma Airport are grounded.
So you're stuck.
You will be physically confined indoors, often experiencing localized power outages for 24 to 48 hours.
And the disruption doesn't even end when the rain stops, does it?
No, not at all. You face another 24 hours of severe transit delays as engineering crews slowly move down the rail network, clearing fallen trees and debris off the tracks.
So if you're on a tight 14-day Japan itinerary, a September typhoon in Kochi will completely obliterate your schedule.
September is explicitly on the do not fly list for anyone with rigid onward bookings.
That is a critical warning. So September is out, but then the sky's clear, and October and November rally back as the second best window of the year, correct?
Absolutely. The late autumn high-pressure systems settle in, the typhoon threat evaporates, the humidity drops out of the air, and temperatures settle around a very comfortable 18 degrees Celsius.
Perfect walking weather.
Furthermore, you get the incredible autumn foliage, the koyo. While Kyoto's autumn leaves draw millions, heading up to Mount Godaisan in Kochi during November offers a stunning, vibrant display with a fraction of the foot traffic.
And the pricing remains highly reasonable, making autumn a fantastic alternative to May.
And then, of course, December brings the cycle back to quiet, chilly, and cheap.
So let's put ourselves in the shoes of the traveler. You have successfully navigated the calendar.
You bypass the typhoons.
You avoided the million-person festival trap. You picked May or November, and your plane finally touches down.
Exciting moment.
What does that first hour on the ground actually feel like? Because the arrival sequence fundamentally sets the psychological tone for the entire trip.
The contrast is going to be genuinely jarring, especially if you have just flown into Tokyo's Haneda or Osaka's Kansai airports a few days prior.
Oh, for sure.
Because the hallmark of major Japanese airports right now is friction. Massive queues snaking through immigration, endless walks down sterile corridors, the overwhelming noise of thousands of people trying to figure out the subway machines.
It's exhausting.
Arriving at Kochi Ryoma Airport is the absolute antithesis of that. The primary sensation is a distinct lack of friction.
Really?
Yeah, if you happen to be flying direct from one of the few international hubs connected to Kochi, like Seoul or Taipei, the immigration process frequently takes under 10 minutes from stepping off the plane to walking out the front doors.
10 minutes. That sounds like an absolute dream for anyone who has stood in the 2-hour line at Kansai recently.
It really is. The physical layout of the airport facilitates it. It's compact and entirely logical, and the onward logistics are incredibly straightforward.
You don't have to decode a massive subterranean train network.
Exactly. You just walk out the front door, and there is the airport bus waiting to take you to Kochi Station.
So easy.
It operates on a very simple mechanism. It costs 740 yen. The journey takes about 40 minutes, and the timetable is synced to the flight arrivals, running roughly every 30 minutes between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m.
And what if you have a ton of bags?
If you're traveling heavy or simply want point-to-point comfort, a taxi directly to the city center runs about 4,500 yen.
And the moment you step out of that station or taxi, there's an immediate, incredibly specific sensory hit. You realize instantly that you are on the coast.
Yeah, the air is different.
You can literally smell the salt in the air blowing off the Pacific.
Yeah.
And mingled with that ocean air is this incredible heavy aroma of dark roasted black sugar.
Yes, from the street vendors.
From the small roadside vendors who sell imo kenpi, which are these local sugar-coated sweet potato fries, it smells completely different from the mainland.
And because you're facing the open Pacific, the quality of the light is different too.
It's sharper, much brighter,
Yeah.
and way less filtered than the hazy light you get trapped inside the inland basin of Kyoto.
And right as you're orienting yourself to that ocean light and the smell of the black sugar, you'll likely hear a distinct rattling sound.
Oh, the trams.
That is the Tosaden tram network crossing the city. Kochi operates the oldest continuously running tram system in Japan.
They're amazing.
And when we describe it as vintage, we mean the carriages literally look like they rolled straight out of 1975, because structurally they did.
Well, you did.
They're these boxy, slightly lumbering, beautifully maintained pieces of mid-century civic engineering.
They are gorgeous, and they operate on a beautifully simple flat fare of 200 yen for a single ride, regardless of distance within the city zone. Yeah. But I have to ask, from a purely logistical standpoint, is this system actually functional? Or is the phrase vintage charm just polite travel writer code for a system that is incredibly slow, entirely inefficient, and frustrating to use?
Well, it is undeniably slow. You're not going to break any speed records on the Tosaden.
Right.
But you have to view it within the context of the city's geography. In Kochi, the lack of a hyperspeed modern transit system is a feature, not a bug.
How so?
The city center is remarkably compact. Urban planning essentially revolves around the massive, main-covered arcade Obiyamachi. The layout of the city effectively dictates the physical flow of your day.
So you just don't need a deep-bore subway system because you're never attempting to cover vast, sprawling distances.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense. In fact, if we map out the ideal, frictionless 24-hour arrival arc, it relies entirely on that walkability.
Let's hear it.
It looks something like this. You land late morning, you take the 40-minute bus into the city and drop your bags at your hotel near Harimayabashi, which is the central geographical intersection of the city.
Yep, perfect hub.
From there, you don't even need the tram. It's a slow 15-minute walk straight into Hirome Market for an early lunch, where you grab that blowtorch-seared katsuo tataki.
My favorite part.
After lunch, you take a gentle 20-minute stroll up the incline to the grounds of Kochi Castle to spend the afternoon exploring the feudal architecture. And by 7 p.m., you've walked back down the hill and are sitting at a cozy, wood-paneled counter bar right on Obiyamachi, eating your second round of katsuo for the day.
It is the ultimate low-stress introduction to Japan. You aren't sprinting through the labyrinth of Shinjuku Station desperately trying to decode 5 different colored train lines on your phone while 1,000 commuters push past you.
Exactly. You're just walking, observing the architecture, eating when you're hungry, and absorbing the rhythm of a regional capital.
Of course, the seamlessness of that 24-hour arc heavily depends on dropping your bags at a good hotel near that central intersection.
Right, which brings us to the money.
And this is where we need to look at the massive economic advantage of that 18-month pricing lag. Let's break down exactly what your money buys in Kochi this year, category by category.
Because the 2026 pricing across our 4 accommodation tiers is genuinely wild compared to the rest of the country.
It really is. Let's establish the floor with the budget end. For backpackers, the market offers incredible value without sacrificing cleanliness.
Give me some numbers.
You have properties like the 7 Days Hotel plus Kochi. It's currently running around 4,200 yen per night for a modern capsule bunk.
That's fantastic.
It's exceptionally clean, the staff are highly accustomed to English speakers, and geographically, it is literally a 2-minute walk from the JR Kochi station.
Super convenient.
If you prefer a more traditional communal hostel environment, the Kaosan Kochi Orient Hostel offers shared dorm beds for roughly 3,800 yen.
And the locations are good.
That's the crucial mechanism here, the zoning. Both of these budget options are situated squarely in the Obiyamachi and station zones. You're completely integrated into the walkable core.
So you don't need to factor in the hidden cost of daily train tickets. just to get from your cheap bed on the outskirts into the city center.
Exactly, which is a massive drain on budget travelers in Tokyo.
Okay, moving up. For the mid-range couple, the target is the standard, reliable, Western-style business hotel.
Yep.
The Richmond Hotel Kochi is currently pricing around 11,500 yen per room per night for a double bed. The Daiwa Roynet Kochi, which is a very comparable national chain, is sitting slightly higher at around 12,800 yen.
Evaluating the raw data and the geography, I have to call the Richmond Hotel Kochi as the definitive mid-range pick for the entire prefecture.
Really? Why the Richmond specifically?
The location-to-price ratio is absolutely unbeatable. It is situated right on the edge of the Obiyamachi covered arcade.
Oh, perfect.
This means you can seamlessly transition from a late-night dinner at an izakaya, maybe a few drinks at a standing bar, and walk back to your lobby in under 2 minutes in a completely safe, well-lit environment.
That's a huge plus.
And the fact that their 2026 algorithmic pricing is still holding at 11,500 yen for a couple days, which equates to roughly 58 pounds or $75, is the absolute ultimate proof of the pricing lag effect we discussed.
It's almost too good to be true. Moving up to the family category. Anyone who has tried to travel in Japan with children knows that finding a single room that comfortably fits a family of 4 is notoriously difficult.
It's a nightmare, honestly.
It really is. The architectural standard for Japanese business hotels is simply too small. Families usually end up forced to book and pay for 2 separate adjoining rooms.
Right.
But in Kochi, we found the Hotel Nikko Kochi Asahi Royal. It currently runs around 19,500 yen per night for a dedicated specialized family room, and that rate includes a massive buffet breakfast.
And the rooms are actually big.
The physical footprint of these rooms is exceptionally large by domestic standards. If you run the math for a family of 4 sharing that space, it works out to roughly 4,900 yen per head per night.
You're effectively securing backpacker-level per-person pricing, but you're staying in a highly reputable, full-service, high-rise family hotel with extensive amenities.
Exactly. The value retention for families is staggering.
And then we reach the top of the pyramid, luxury.
My favorite tier.
In central Kochi, you have the Sansuin, which runs 28,000 yen per person. That includes the room, access to their natural hot spring onsens, and 2 massive traditional multi-course meals.
Okay, but if you're willing to drive or take the train 90 minutes west of the city to the town of Nakamura, you find the Shorenji Onsen Ryokan.
Yes.
It runs 38,000 yen per person per night. This also includes 2 meals and a private onsen. Now, I have to call Shorenji as the ultimate winner here, purely for the environmental setting.
It is stunning, I'll admit.
It's just, the architecture is built directly into the cliffside, along a pristine river, surrounded by dense forested mountains. You can sit in a steaming hot spring in complete privacy, listening to the white noise of the river rushing by below you. It is pure, unfiltered cinematic escapism.
Look, I acknowledge the absolute aesthetic superiority of Shorenji. But if we are strictly analyzing the logistics for a traveler on a tighter, say, 3-day Kochi itinerary, my call has to be Sansuin.
But Shorenji is a cinematic masterpiece.
It is, but Sansuin delivers that highly coveted, high-end Ryokan mechanism, the scent of fresh tatami mats, the quiet sliding doors, the exquisite dinner service brought to your room right in the geographical center of the city.
I suppose that's true.
You do not bleed a precious half-day of your vacation sitting on a train just to reach your luxury accommodation.
Okay, I understand the logistical argument, but I want to push back forcefully on the broader concept of this luxury pricing.
Go for it.
38,000 yen per person translates to roughly 240 pounds or $300 a night. To an average listener, that does not sound cheap in any context.
Yeah.
Why are we definitively calling this the absolute best luxury value in Japan right now?
To understand why 38,000 yen is a steal, we have to deeply analyze the mechanism of kaiseki dining and the broader reality of Japanese luxury inflation.
Okay.
It's like that. Kaiseki is not just a big meal. It's a meticulously choreographed, hyper-seasonal, multi-course dining experience. The chef is sourcing incredibly rare local ingredients served on specialized ceramics that change with the month, requiring an immense amount of highly skilled labor.
It's an art form.
Exactly. In the Golden Route cities, if you want a private onsen and a high-end kaiseki experience in Kyoto or up in the mountains of Hakone near Mount Fuji, the massive influx of wealthy international travelers has totally warped the baseline.
Prices have exploded.
For an equivalent level of service and culinary artistry in those famous areas, you are currently looking at a minimum baseline of 70,000 to 80,000 yen per person per night.
Wow.
The cost of traditional luxury in central Japan has absolutely skyrocketed out of reach for most normal people.
Hmm.
So when you look at a property like Shorenji offering an equivalent and arguably far more authentic and intimate experience for 38,000 yen, you're looking at a drastic 50% value gap.
So it's literally half the price of Hakone for the exact same mechanical delivery of luxury. Okay, so whether you've secured that 4,200 yen castle bunk or that 38,000 yen riverside onsen, eventually you have to eat outside your hotel.
And this is the point where Kochi completely and utterly separates itself from the economic reality of the rest of mainland Japan.
The divergence is profound, isn't it?
It all comes down to the underlying architecture of the food systems. In massive tourist hubs like Tokyo, Kyoto, or Osaka, you effectively have two parallel, completely disconnected economies running simultaneously.
Right, the locals aren't eating where the tourists are eating.
Exactly. You have the local food system tucked away in residential neighborhoods, and you have the tourist food system located around the major sites. And right now, that tourist system is incredibly abusive.
Artificial inflation.
It's characterized by artificially inflated prices, lower quality ingredients, and a rapid turnover mindset. But in Kochi, that duality essentially does not exist yet.
The prefecture simply does not have the volume of foreigners required to sustain a predatory tourist food tier. The ultimate, undeniable proof of this single-tier economy is Hirome Market. We talked about it in the intro.
The blowtorch spot.
Yes. Physically, it's a sprawling, slightly chaotic, covered food hall, crammed with about 60 different independent vendors. The acoustic environment is loud, the air is thick with smoke from the grills, and it is incredibly deeply fun.
Sounds amazing.
You walk up to a counter, and a full katsuo tataki set, which is 5 thick slices of bonito tuna seared over straw, served with raw garlic, salt, a bowl of rice, and miso soup, costs 1,300 yen.
Unbelievable.
Take your tray, and you sit down at these long, communal wooden tables. And the person sitting next to you is not another tourist reading a guidebook. It's a local office worker on their lunch break, or a group of grandfathers who've been drinking beer since 10 a.m.
That's the real Japan.
You are eating the exact same food at the exact same price in the exact same room as the local population. Contrast that reality with Nishiki Market in Kyoto.
Oh, Nishiki breaks my heart.
Nishiki used to be culturally revered as Kyoto's kitchen. Today, if you walk through Nishiki, it's almost entirely a manufactured tourist trap. That exact same quality of seafood, if you can even find a place to sit down, will easily run you 2,800 to 3,200 yen.
And the economic value extends far beyond just lunch at Hirome. If your itinerary happens to align with a Sunday, you have access to the Sunday street market, known locally as Otesuji.
I love Otesuji.
This is not a quaint little farmer's market. It is a massive kilometer-long outdoor market that entirely takes over the main boulevard of the city. You can slowly wander down the street and piece together an incredibly diverse, high-quality breakfast.
What are we eating there?
You grab a skewer of fresh-aged tofu, deep-fried tofu, some charcoal-grilled chicken yakitori, maybe some fresh citrus, and a local craft beer, and your total out-of-pocket expense is around 1,200 yen.
But traveling isn't just about restaurant meals and markets. We absolutely have to talk about the hidden cost of daily grocery.
Oh, definitely.
Because the cost of water, snacks, and late-night food is a massive part of a realistic travel budget. The instinct for most travelers in Japan is to immediately rely on the major national convenience store chains, Lawson, 7-Eleven, Family Mart.
Right, that's what everyone does.
But in Kochi, you need to break that habit. If you want to optimize your budget, you skip the national chains and use the deeply localized Shikoku supermarket networks, specifically the Sunny Mart and Fuji chains.
And the prices reflect that.
Across the board, their pricing algorithms are set 15 to 20% cheaper than the national convenience stores. Let's look at the raw 2026 data we pulled from a central Sunny Mart. A massive 2-liter bottle of mineral water is 98 yen.
Wow.
A freshly prepared, high-quality bento box featuring local katsuo sashimi is 498 yen. A whole, locally cultivated yuzu fruit, which is central to Kochi's agriculture, is 128 yen. And a standard 6-pack of Asahi beer is 1,180 yen.
Those specific data points are incredibly revealing. They are the ultimate proof of concept. The agricultural supply chains in Shikoku are highly localized.
So no middleman markups.
Exactly. The food doesn't have to be shipped across the country, and there is no export premium attached to it. When you buy that 498 yen bento, you are directly interacting with a genuine, localized economic ecosystem, not a price-gouged tourist bubble.
It's so refreshing.
And speaking of the mechanics of local ecosystems, we absolutely need to address the social etiquette, specifically the drinking culture, which is highly unique to this specific prefecture. It is a cultural phenomenon known as okiyaku.
Yes, the okaku culture is fascinating. If you're sitting at a narrow counter bar in Kochi, it's an extremely common occurrence for the person sitting next to you, who is a complete utter stranger, to suddenly lean over and pour you a cup of their sake or beer.
It happens all the time.
And the rigid social mechanism of okiyaku dictates that if they fill your cup, you are expected to drink it. And crucially, you must return the cup to them empty so that they can pour themselves a drink, or you take the bottle and pour for them.
It's this wonderful, cyclical, communal sharing of alcohol. It's literally how locals break the ice.
But from the perspective of an outsider, it can also be profoundly intimidating.
Completely intimidating.
Put yourself in the shoes of a traveler who might not speak a single word of Japanese beyond hello and thank you. You're tired, you just want a quiet beer, and suddenly 3 different local men are trying to pour sake down your throat.
Yeah, that can be overwhelming.
How do you navigate strangers pouring you alcohol without making a massive cultural faux pas? Because you might genuinely not want to drink 5 cups of hard liquor on a random Tuesday night.
It's a highly delicate dance of hospitality. The unwritten internal rule of okiyaku is that declining the gesture up to 3 times is considered perfectly acceptable and socially normal.
Okay, 3 strikes.
Right. The mechanism of refusal is simple. You just smile warmly, politely wave your hand in a crossing motion and say, no thank you. The locals will understand.
But what if they keep offering?
Well, the social friction occurs if you decline a 4th time, after they have persistently and cheerfully offered. At that point, the refusal crosses an invisible line and is considered actively rude and a rejection of their hospitality.
So you have to eventually play along a little bit.
It requires a bit of social navigation, but honestly, dropping your guard and embracing the okiyaku ritual once or twice is exactly how you end up having the most memorable, profound nights of your entire trip, communicating entirely through exaggerated gestures, laughter, and shared drinks.
There is, however, one specific food trap we need to aggressively warn you about.
Oh, the menus.
Yes. Well, we just spent 10 minutes praising Kochi for entirely avoiding the dual-tier tourist pricing system. There is one glaring localized exception. There's a tiny microcluster of restaurants situated on the south side of the Obiamachi-covered arcade.
I know exactly the ones you mean.
They have incredibly bright, professionally translated English menus displayed prominently on the sidewalk. They feature massive, high-definition photos of katsuo tataki. And if you look closely at the numbers, they are charging 2,800 yen for the exact same set meal.
It is the single structural anomaly in the city's food scene. The economic mechanism they're relying on is tourist fatigue.
They're just preying on tired people.
They're banking entirely on the fact that exhausted, disoriented international arrivals will simply point at the very first English menu they recognize, rather than navigate a Japanese-only environment.
You must exercise rigid discipline here. Do not fall for the convenience tax.
Never.
You're physically standing a mere 2 blocks away from identical and arguably much higher quality 1,400 yen sets inside Hirome Market. If you see the bright English sign and the 2,800 yen price tag, just turn around on your heel and walk north.
Because the overarching psychological relief of traveling in a prefecture where you don't have to constantly keep your guard up, constantly analyzing every single menu to ensure you aren't being fleeced is immense. It allows you to actually relax.
Absolutely. So when you combine the reality of 498 yen supermarket bentos with 1,400 yen market lunches and 200 yen tram rides, what does the actual daily financial burn rate look like?
Let's run the numbers.
We need to move beyond theory. Let's run the exact out-of-pocket daily budgets, rigorously calculated at a real-world 2026 exchange rate of 158 to the British pound, which is roughly equivalent to 150 to the US dollar.
Let's start with the backpacker profile, representing the absolute floor of daily spending. Keeping costs aggressively low without starving, you're looking at a total daily financial burn of 7,520 yen.
Which is how much in pounds?
That translates to roughly 48 pounds a day, or about $60.
That is insane. What's the breakdown?
The mathematical breakdown is your 3,800 yen hostel dorm bed, a 2,200 yen food budget, which easily covers a hearty, protein-heavy lunch at Hirome Market and a substantial Sunny Mart grocery dinner.
Okay.
600 yen covers a full-day unlimited tram pass, 420 yen covers your entry to Kochi Castle, and we allocate 500 yen for miscellaneous snacks or a coffee.
Operating at under 50 pounds a day for a rich, fulfilling, culturally dense experience in an incredibly safe Japanese city is almost mathematically impossible in 2026. Kochi is the anomaly.
It really is.
For the mid-range couple who want privacy and comfort, you're looking at a total daily spend of 14,050 yen per person. That's about 89 pounds or $113 each.
Also incredible value.
The breakdown looks like this. You're splitting the Richmond hotel room, so your accommodation cost is 5,750 yen a head. We've allocated a highly generous 4,800 yen daily food budget that easily buys you a great lunch at Hirome, a fantastic sit-down dinner at a local counter bar with drinks, and specialty coffees during the day.
Plenty of room to indulge.
Transport bumps up to 800 yen. The attractions budget is 1,200 yen, which gives you total freedom to enter the castle, take the bus up to Mount Godaisan, and pay the entry fee at Chikurinji Temple. Plus, a 1,500 yen miscellaneous buffer. 89 pounds for a highly comfortable, logistically smooth, culturally rich day is phenomenal value.
Then we analyzed the luxury tier, and even at the absolute top end of the market, the economic numbers are fascinating. You're looking at a total daily spend of 48,500 yen per person, which is roughly 307 pounds or $390 a day.
That's a lot of yen, but for luxury, it's competitive.
Right, because the vast bulk of that expenditure is your 38,000 yen stay at the Shorenji Onsen Ryokan. But remember the mechanism of a ryokan. That price inherently includes a massive breakfast and a sprawling multi-course kaiseki dinner.
Right, the food is built in.
Therefore, your outside food budget plummets to just 3,000 yen for a high-end lunch. Transport is allocated at 2,500 yen, giving you the financial freedom to utilize taxis instead of waiting for trams.
And attraction.
Attractions are 2,000 yen, and we add a 3,000 yen miscellaneous buffer for high-end souvenirs or premium sake. For 307 pounds a day, you are literally living like regional royalty in a private riverside hot spring.
And finally, we have to look at the digital nomad profile. This calculation is for a full 30-day extended stay. The total monthly expenditure comes to 246,000 yen. That is just 1,555 pounds, or roughly $1,980 for an entire month of living in Japan.
That is wild.
The breakdown is rock solid. It includes renting a fully furnished private apartment and monthly mansion Kochi for 95,000 yen. It includes renting a dedicated fiber optic connected desk at the place of co-working space for 18,000 yen. We allocated a highly comfortable 105,000 yen for food, which means you can spend 3,500 yen every single day eating out or buying groceries without ever cooking if you choose not to.
Wow.
Transport is 8,000 yen for the month and a 20,000 yen buffer for incidentals. The raw data proves that this is definitively, mathematically, the cheapest viable digital nomad base in mainland Japan in 2026, bar none.
The spreadsheet economics are undeniably compelling. It's incredibly cheap.
I agree the spreadsheet looks fantastic. But I want to heavily push back on this digital nomad verdict. 1,555 pounds a month is incredible value, yes. But is it a false economy?
What do you mean?
You're moving to a rural, quiet prefecture. You're entirely isolated in a town with virtually zero established expat network. Is the psychological toll of that isolation worth the money you're saving on rent?
That is the vital existential question for remote workers. These budgets we just laid out are fiercely accurate. They are absolutely not aspirational. And a major reason they function so well is that Kochi eliminates the hidden daily transport costs that drain nomads in major cities.
True, the walkability saves money.
Because the city core is so walkable, you aren't bleeding 1,000 yen every single day just swiping your IC card on subway transfers to get between your apartment, the co-working space, and a cafe, which is the reality in Tokyo. However, your point about the psychological isolation is critical.
That's a huge factor.
Kochi does not have a bustling, English-speaking expat ecosystem. You are not going to finish work at 6 p.m., roll into a trendy craft beer bar, and immediately slot into a ready-made community of foreign developers and designers.
You will be a novelty.
You will be. It requires a highly specific, highly self-sufficient psychological profile to thrive there for a month. If you need a built-in social safety net to function, the financial savings are entirely irrelevant because you will be miserable.
Those budget numbers across all profiles rely on perfect execution. But the reality of travel is that things go wrong. And in Kochi, there are 3 massive, highly specific logistical traps that will absolutely ruin those spreadsheets and your entire trip if you do not see them coming.
Oh yes, the traps.
Let's name them and break down exactly how to survive them. Trap number 1, the Okayama connection.
This is geographically the most common failure point for first-time visitors to Shikoku. The mechanism driving this failure is an assumption about infrastructure. Kochi is not on the Shinkansen, the famous high-speed bullet train network.
People always forget that.
Roughly 3 out of 5 travelers look at a map, see that Kochi is relatively close to Osaka geographically, realize they've purchased a JR rail pass, and falsely assume they can just zip down to the coast in 2 hours on a bullet train.
But the actual physical reality of that journey is a brutal wake-up call.
Brutal.
You first have to take the Nozomi Shinkansen from Osaka, heading west to Okayama, which takes about 45 minutes. Then, you have to physically change train platforms in Okayama and transfer to a completely different type of train, the Nanpu Limited Express.
And that's where the pain starts.
Yes, because you then sit on that train for a further 2 hours and 35 minutes as it slowly winds its way down through the steep, winding mountain passes of central Shikoku. You're looking at a full half-day of travel just to arrive.
And here is the absolutely crucial fix, the essential detail for 2026 travel. The Nanpu Limited Express is a reservation-recommended train.
You can't just wing it.
You cannot operate under the assumption that you can just casually stroll onto the platform 5 minutes before departure and claim an unreserved seat. If you're traveling on any summer weekend from April 2026 onwards, the critical 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. morning departures from Okayama will entirely sell out.
So what's the fix?
The mechanism to survive this is simple. You must physically book your Nanpu seat reservation at the Okayama JR ticket counter the day prior to your travel. Do not leave it to the morning of your departure, or you will be standing up in the narrow aisle holding your luggage for 2.5 hours as the train rocks through the mountains.
Trap number 2 is what we call the katsuo tataki tourist tier, which we touched on briefly during the food segment.
The English menu.
Exactly. The economic mechanism is simple and predatory. The restaurants located on the south block of the Obiyomachi Arcade know exactly how tired and disoriented you are after that long train ride. They deploy bright English menus as bait and charge a 100% premium on the local cuisine.
The fix requires rigid behavioral discipline. You eat your daytime meals at the communal tables in Hirome Market, and for dinner, you actively seek out the standing counters inside places like Tosa Bar.
How do you spot them?
The visual cue is crucial. If the pricing is scrawled on a wooden chalkboard in Japanese kanji only, with no photos and no English translation, you're in the exact right place. In 2026, you simply use the live camera translation app on your smartphone to read the menu. Do not surrender and pay the English menu convenience tax.
Trap number 3 is a massive one, and it involves actively ignoring common travel advice. We call it the Shimanto River day trip.
Oh, the travel bloggers love this one.
If you read standard travel blogs or flip through a guidebook, they constantly relentlessly push the Shimanto River sightseeing boat cruise as an absolute must-do day trip from a base in Kochi City. But we are telling you to avoid it.
Hard pass.
Well, are we genuinely advising listeners to completely skip seeing one of Japan's most famous, pristine rivers?
Yes, we absolutely are, because the time value math of that specific excursion is utterly atrocious. The mechanism causing this failure is a profound misunderstanding of Shikoku's rugged topography.
It's beautiful, but it's isolated.
The Shimanto River is undeniably gorgeous, but if you're sleeping in central Kochi City, the transit time is punishing. It takes 2 hours and 15 minutes each way on a slow local train to reach the river town of Nakamura. The actual sightseeing river cruise itself only lasts for 1 single hour.
And the trains back aren't exactly frequent.
No, the absolute final last train back to your hotel in Kochi leaves Nakamura at 7 p.m.
So if we run that math, you're spending roughly 5 grueling hours sitting in a train carriage in order to spend exactly 1 hour sitting on a boat.
It is a mathematically terrible allocation of a finite travel day. The fix requires making a hard choice.
What are the options?
Either you commit to the region entirely, accept the transit time, and book an overnight stay at the Shorenji Onsen Ryokan near the river. Or, if you want a day trip, you skip the Shimanto entirely and substitute it with the Niyodo River.
Oh, Niyodo Blue.
Exactly. The Niyodo is famous for its incredibly clear, distinctive blue water. And crucially, it's only a 40-minute drive or bus ride west of central Kochi City. You get the pristine, rural river experience, the beautiful photos, and the nature walk without sacrificing half of your waking hours staring at the back of a train seat.
The broader lesson here is that blind reliance on a JR rail pass to casually cover massive rural distances always leads to wasted days.
It really does.
Successfully avoiding those 3 transit traps will save your itinerary.
Ugh.
But what about your actual physical safety and comfort while navigating this older, significantly quieter part of Japan? We need to look at the data and run the real risk hierarchy for Kochi in 2026.
If we rank the physical risks in descending order of statistical likelihood, the hierarchy looks like this. Number 1 is the typhoon timing in September disrupting your flights. Number 2 is severe sun exposure and heat stroke if you attempt to hike in July and August. Number 3 is physically twisting your ankle by tripping over the exposed vintage tram tracks that run through the city center streets. And number 4 is encountering aggressive stray dogs if you are hiking alone on deep, remote, rural mountain trails.
If you analyze that list, there is a very obvious glaring omission compared to almost any other global city.
There is zero mention of crime.
That's because violent crime in Kochi is statistically negligible. Property crime, such as pickpocketing or bag snatching, is incredibly rare.
Which means for solo female travelers, Kochi is honestly one of the absolute easiest, most psychologically relaxing destinations in all of Japan.
It really is. The act of walking alone around the train station, navigating the Obiyamachi arcade, or walking back from Hirome Market is fundamentally safe at all hours of the night.
And there are institutional measures, too.
Yeah, JR Shikoku operates dedicated women-only carriages on the local trains during the morning rush hour, from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. The only highly specific geographical warning in our data relates to the west side of the central bus terminal late at night.
It's a bit sketchy.
It's absolutely not dangerous. Nobody's going to accost you. But the municipal lighting is very poor, and it feels desolate and empty. The simple fix is just to walk one block over to the main street where the commercial lights are brighter.
Evaluating the safety profile for families with young children, the general environment is excellent. However, there are two major physical friction points in the prefecture that parents must plan around.
And the first one is Castle, right?
The first is Kochi Castle. Because it is an original, authentic feudal structure, not a modern concrete reconstruction, it's completely inaccessible. It features over 100 incredibly steep, highly polished, slippery wooden steps inside the main keep, and there is absolutely no modern lift installed.
So no strollers.
It's physically impossible to navigate with a pushchair, and frankly dangerous for unstable toddlers. The second major hazard is Katsuo Beach. Families look at a map, see a massive beach right near the city, and immediately plan a swimming day.
But you cannot swim there.
But the underwater geography of Katsuo creates a notoriously strong, highly dangerous rip current and undertow. Swimming is actively, legally discouraged by the local authorities for a reason. It catches foreign families completely off guard every single summer. You can walk on the sand, but do not plan to swim there under any circumstances.
On the crucial health infrastructure front, if a medical emergency does occur, you are covered. Kochi Medical School Hospital is a massive, modern medical facility located about a 20-minute drive from the city center, and our 2026 data confirms they consistently have English-speaking medical staff on duty.
That's a huge relief.
And as for the classic tourist scams, the fake monks, the tea ceremonies, the bar overcharges, there are absolutely zero noted scams in our current data. Nobody is trying to aggressively drag you into an overpriced, shady hostess bar like they do in Tokyo's Kabukicho district.
This is a fundamentally different world from Tokyo.
However, there is one highly specific, culturally complex friction point we need to flag.
Yes. As you wander away from the main streets, you will occasionally encounter older, very small izakayas, the intimate local pubs, that have a small, discreet wooden sign or kanji written on the door that explicitly translates to Japanese only.
We absolutely need to dive deeply into those Japanese-only signs. Because for an international traveler arriving with good intentions and a pocket full of yen, walking up to a restaurant and seeing a sign that effectively bans you based on your nationality feels like a physical punch to the gut.
Of course it does.
It feels overtly discriminatory. How is a traveler supposed to intellectually process that kind of rejection in a city where the central government is currently spending billions of yen trying to explicitly welcome tourists? It is a massive contradiction.
It is a jarring contradiction, and it is entirely understandable for a traveler to feel deeply stung and offended by it. But you have to zoom out and contextualize the specific mechanics of those signs in rural Japan. In Kochi, the deployment of Japanese-only sign is almost never born out of malice, racial superiority, or genuine xenophobia.
So what is it about?
It is an artifact of profound linguistic anxiety. You have to look at who is running these specific establishments. These are often tiny mom-and-pop operations run by a husband and wife in their late 70s.
They don't have menus in English?
They don't have translated English menus. They do not speak a single word of English. And their deepest culturally ingrained fear is providing inadequate hospitality, giving bad service, or having a catastrophic misunderstanding over a bill because they cannot communicate.
So they're terrified of the friction.
Exactly. The sign is their blunt, awkward mechanism for protecting the highly intimate, fragile, locals-only ecosystem they have carefully curated for 40 years.
So how do you handle it as a traveler?
The fix for the traveler is psychological. Do not take the rejection personally. Do not attempt to aggressively argue your way inside to prove a point. Just nod, respect the boundary, and walk 10 meters down the street to the next izakaya. Because there are 100 other bars in Kochi that will absolutely welcome you with open arms and pour you a drink.
So assuming you're safe, you're well-fed, you've successfully bypassed the transit traps, and you've gracefully navigated the complex cultural nuances of the izakaya scene.
We're doing pretty well.
Now we have to ask the ultimate question.
Yeah.
What are the actual physical moments that make all of this logistical effort worth it? And conversely, which famous sites are just pure manufactured hype? Because if we were providing an honest verdict, we need to violently kill some sacred cows right now.
Let's start by slaughtering the overhyped experiences. The biggest offender is Katsuo Beach, which we just discussed regarding the swimming ban. Every single piece of promotional tourist literature lists it as the premier sightseeing destination.
But it's not.
The physical reality is drastically different. It's a relatively narrow, heavily pebbly cove. It's visually dominated by an incredibly cheesy, oversized bronze statue of Sakamoto Ryoma, who is a famous local historical samurai.
It's basically a photo op.
The view out over the vast Pacific Ocean is perfectly fine, but functionally, it's a 20-minute visit, tops. You walk out, look at the statue, look at the water, and you're done. It's absolutely, categorically not a half-day destination, and building your itinerary around it is a mistake.
And then there is the absolute comedy of Harimayabashi. This is supposed to be the deeply famous, historically significant red bridge from a beloved local folk song about a tragic romance.
It's on all the maps.
It is highlighted on literally every tourist map. I went looking for it during my research. I was expecting this grand structure over a river. What I found was a bridge that is literally 40 centimeters long.
It's tiny.
It is a 40-centimeter slightly curved piece of redwood sitting completely dry inside a concrete traffic median next to a busy road. I actually burst out laughing when I saw it. How did a piece of wood in a traffic median become a globally mapped tourist destination?
It is the ultimate absurd manifestation of checklist tourism. The mechanism here is bureaucratic desperation. Municipal tourist boards feel an overwhelming institutional need to physicalize abstract folklore in order to give tourists a specific object to photograph and prove they've visited.
Even the locals joke about it.
Yeah, even the residents of Kochi openly and cheerfully refer to it as the single most disappointing landmark in all of Japan, and their assessment is entirely accurate. It's a bizarre physical artifact of marketing completely overriding historical substance.
It's hilarious, but thankfully, the authentic, profound hits in Kochi vastly, overwhelmingly outweigh the municipal misses. We mentioned Kochi Castle. It's brilliant. I will caveat that by saying the interior is essentially just a series of small, somewhat dry, dusty museum display cases.
But the outside is where it's at.
But the exterior,
Mm-hmm.
the sweeping, curved, feudal architecture, the massive, imposing stone walls, the way it dominates the skyline of the city, that is where the actual historical magic is. You experience the castle by walking the grounds, not by reading the placards inside.
If we're talking about profound, authentic experiences, my absolute top recommendation for the entire prefecture is Chikurinji Temple, situated high up on Mount Godaisan.
It's so beautiful up there.
The cultural weight here is real. This is the 31st official stop of the ancient, legendary 88-temple Shikoku pilgrimage route. This is not a manufactured tourist trap. This is a living, breathing religious site.
And the gardens.
You walk through these sprawling, incredibly peaceful, meticulously maintained moss gardens. You get sweeping panoramic views down over the city and the inlet. And the crucial factor is the isolation. If you time your visit for a random weekday morning, you might be sharing the entire massive complex with perhaps a dozen other people, mostly silent pilgrims dressed in white. The atmosphere is genuinely profound.
And as we touched on earlier, the Nichioichi Sunday Street Market is arguably The single best 3-hour block of time you can spend in the prefecture, assuming your travel dates align with the Sunday.
Absolutely.
But if I had to distill Kochi down to one single lasting memory, the specific visceral moment that cements this prefecture in my mind above all others, it brings us right back to the hook of this episode. It's sitting at that scratched wooden counter inside Hirome Market at 11 a.m.
A freezing cold glass of Asahi beer in your hand.
Exactly. The ambient noise of the market is roaring around you. And 2 meters away, you're watching a master cook physically heave a massive rack of bonito tuna over a raging, crackling fire of burning straw.
The sensory overload is incredible.
The flames shoot up, the intense heat hits your face, the heavy, savory smell of the smoke completely envelops you, and 5 minutes later, that incredibly fresh fish is on your plate. It's visceral, it's loud, it is deeply real, and it is completely unforgettable. The overarching philosophy here is that Kochi profoundly rewards the atmospheric traveler, the person who wants to sit and absorb, far more than the frantic sightseer.
That distinction is paramount. If your psychological profile requires a checklist of 10 world-class, globally recognized monuments to feel like you've had a successful travel day, Kochi will deeply disappoint you. It does not have the sheer volume of sights that Kyoto has.
It just doesn't.
But if your goal is to sit down, observe the mechanics of daily life, eat incredibly well, and feel the actual unhurried rhythm of a regional Japanese city, it is completely unmatched in the current market.
But, and this is a massive but, if you're listening to this breakdown, looking at that list of experiences and thinking to yourself, you know what, maybe Kochi sounds just a little bit too sleepy for me. Maybe I actually want a bit more action or a bit more polish.
That's a valid reaction.
If that is your reaction, there are 2 direct, highly viable alternatives you need to rigorously weigh Kochi against before you make your final booking decision.
The first direct alternative is Takamatsu, which is located on the northern coast of Shikoku Island. The mechanism of choosing Takamatsu is driven by logistics.
Why Takamatsu?
You select Takamatsu if you desire that same relaxed, localized Shikoku calm, but your itinerary requires significantly faster access to the mainland. Geographically, Takamatsu is only a rapid 1-hour train ride across the bridge from Okayama compared to the grueling 2.5-hour mountain journey down to Kochi.
And it has the art islands.
Right. The major world-class draw of Takamatsu is its proximity to the Seto Inland Sea. The logistical ease of island hopping out of Takamatsu port off, taking ferries out to globally renowned contemporary art islands like Noishima and Teshima is genuinely spectacular.
The economic trade-off for that logistical convenience is that your baseline daily cost in Takamatsu will run roughly 10% higher across the board than in Kochi.
Which isn't terrible, but it's a factor.
But Takamatsu strongly, definitively suits first-time visitors to Shikoku who are operating on a much tighter, perhaps 10-day itinerary and simply cannot afford to burn the transit time required for that deep dive all the way south.
The second major alternative requires leaving Shikoku entirely. It's Kanazawa, situated up on the western Japan seacoast. The mechanism of choosing Kanazawa is driven by aesthetics.
Kanazawa was gorgeous.
You select Kanazawa if you want the heavy cultural heft, the traditional wooden architecture, and the high-end aesthetic of Kyoto, but you want it without the sheer, crushing, suffocating volume of international tourists.
It's like a mini Kyoto.
Kanazawa features beautifully preserved, historically accurate samurai residential districts. It boasts the incredible Kenroku-en Garden, which is universally ranked as one of the top 3 landscape gardens in the entire country. And it has functioning geisha tea house districts that, unlike Kyoto, still occasionally accept walk-in customers.
The aesthetic is stunning, but the economic reality is harsh. The baseline costs in Kanazawa run roughly 35% higher than in Kochi.
That's a big jump.
And this presents a highly crucial strategic question for the listener. If I only have a finite 8 days in Japan total, does Kanazawa's incredibly high polish actually make more logical sense for my trip, despite that massive 35% financial premium?
If your absolute total time in the country is strictly limited to an 8-day trip, yes, mathematically and logistically, Kanazawa probably makes more sense, primarily because it's directly connected to Tokyo via a hyper-fast Shinkansen route. You don't lose a day to travel.
There's a trade-off there, too.
But you have to profoundly understand what it is you are actually buying with that 35% premium. Kanazawa offers traditional Japan polish. Everything is manicured, the streets are spotless, the presentations are flawless, and everything is perfectly optimized for the camera lens.
Whereas Kochi offers honesty.
Kochi, conversely, offers traditional Japan honesty. It's significantly rougher around the edges, it's undeniably cheaper, and, crucially, it isn't actively trying to perform for you. Furthermore, the macro tourist situation in Kanazawa is deteriorating rapidly as we speak.
Oh, because of the Kyoto overflow.
Exactly. As Kyoto physically overflows with tourists, that overflow is being channeled directly up the train line to Kanazawa. The demographic makeup of Kanazawa is changing right now. Kochi, isolated down on the Pacific coast, is still holding on to its baseline pre-globalized reality. That makes Kochi's current state a highly rare, incredibly fleeting commodity.
We have exhaustively run the numbers. We've mapped the complex transit traps. We have intensely debated the philosophical value of aesthetic polish versus localized honesty. It is time to run the final matrix.
Let's do it.
Is Kochi actually worth the investment of your time and money? Let's deliver the definitive final verdicts for our 5 traveler profiles.
Let's execute the matrix. Starting with the backpacker profile, the verdict is a definitive, resounding yes.
Nice.
At a highly calculated burn rate of roughly 48 pounds a day, which includes a highly central modern dorm bed, eating those incredible protein-dense lunches at Hirome Market, and enjoying full unlimited tram access, Kochi is easily, mathematically, the cheapest, genuinely interesting Japanese city available in 2026.
With one caveat, right?
The single overriding caveat is the resource of time. Because it requires a full half-day of transit just to reach the city from the Osaka hub, it really only makes logistical sense if your total Japan trip is 10 days or longer. If you possess that required time, the raw value proposition is completely unbeatable.
Moving to the mid-range couple. The verdict is yes, with conditions. Operating at around 89 pounds per person per day, the overarching value proposition is absolutely excellent.
It's perfect for couples.
This is a city that profoundly, deeply rewards couples who are willing to simply sit side by side at narrow counter bars, soak in the heavy local atmosphere, and use translation apps to confidently point at wooden chalkboards to order their food.
But what are the conditions?
The conditions for success, however, are incredibly strict. You absolutely must audit your calendar and avoid the Yosakoi Festival week from August 9th to 12th. You must avoid the September typhoon season entirely. And you must deliberately, consciously build that Okayama train transit time into your itinerary rather than pretending you can teleport. If you respect the rigid logistics, it is a massive, highly romantic win.
Analyzing the family profile. The verdict is yes, with conditions. Look, from a macro perspective, Kochi is undeniably safer, significantly calmer, and vastly cheaper than attempting to drag exhausted children through the dense crowds of Kyoto or Tokyo.
But the attractions?
However, the caveat is that the headline, globally recognized attractions are very light. You cannot rely on massive theme parks. You must proactively plan your days around localized experiences, taking the bus up to explore Mount Godaisan, utilizing the vintage tram system as a physical form of entertainment, executing a nature day trip to the Niyodo River, and dedicating a morning to the Sunday street market.
And the beach roll.
And remember the safety absolute. Beach swimming at Katsuo is a hard, non-negotiable no. The core logistical condition here is duration. You must commit to at least 5 full days on Shikoku Island. Anything less than 5 days, and the sheer transit time and train costs for a family of 4 simply do not mathematically pay back the investment.
The luxury profile. The verdict here is a resounding, unequivocal yes. The Shorenji Onsen Ryokan, priced at 38,000 yen per person, which inherently includes 2 massive high-end kaiseki meals and access to a private riverside onsen, is the single greatest luxury value proposition in mainland Japan right now in 2026, period.
Absolutely agree.
The fundamental caveat here is how you architect the flow of your trip. The central city hotels, like the Sansuen, are perfectly fine. They're very good, but they're not globally spectacular. The true elite luxury play in Kochi is specifically the Ryokan Plus River route, out in the deep nature, completely bypassing the urban city hotel route.
Finally, we evaluate the digital nomad profile. The verdict is yes, operating at a fully loaded cost of around 1,555 pounds per month for literally everything. A private furnished apartment, all food, a dedicated co-working desk, and local transport. Kochi is mathematically the cheapest viable mainland Japan nomad base currently available, period.
The infrastructure is definitely there.
The infrastructure supports the work. The fiber internet is incredibly fast. The Place co-working space provides a genuinely productive professional environment, and the standard visa-free 90-day entry window works seamlessly for most major nationalities.
But the isolation.
The single massive caveat is the psychological and social aspect. The English-speaking expat community is virtually non-existent. You absolutely must be comfortable operating as a highly isolated solo operator. Kochi is a place to put your head down, focus deeply, and work. It is not a built-in, ready-made social club.
So if we pull all of these disparate threads together, the 3.8 billion yen infrastructure injection, the 18-month pricing lag, the complex weather windows, and the deep cultural honesty, the overarching theme of this deep dive is remarkably clear.
It really is.
Kochi is definitively not built for the TikTok checklist crowd. You're not traveling all the way down to the Pacific Coast to frantically hit 10 famous monuments in a single 12-hour window. It is a massive, deliberate investment of your precious transit time.
But an investment that pays off.
But it's an investment that pays off massively in profound financial savings and an entirely unfiltered, authentic look at a Japanese society that isn't actively performing for a global audience.
And that 18-month economic clock is loudly ticking. The sheer scale of that 3.8 billion yen central infrastructure investment mathematically guarantees that Kochi will not remain this cheap or this beautifully quiet forever.
The pipes are built.
The central planners are building the pipes and the water is coming. The window of perfect equilibrium is open right now, today.
It won't last forever.
No, it won't. But I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over as you look at your travel maps. We've talked extensively today about the Japanese government successfully redistributing global tourism down to Shikoku.
Right.
They're actively, aggressively pushing the massive international crowds out of Kyoto and purposefully funneling them into places exactly like Kochi. But think deeply about the logical conclusion of that strategy.
Oh, wow. Where does it end?
When the government successfully finishes that massive redistribution project in the next few years, and the streets of Kochi are eventually full of foreign travelers, where exactly will the local Japanese population go to escape the tourists?
That is a terrifying question.
Will there realistically even be a quiet, undiscovered coastal Japan left anywhere on the map by 2030? Or is Kochi literally the final fading frontier of pre-globalized Japanese domestic travel?
If this gave you the honest verdict you needed, follow the show. New episodes drop every day. That is the honest verdict from Phil and H.
That is the honest verdict from Phil and H.